Hi, boys and girls. This is Ms. Kathy. I'm so happy you've joined me today for another story just for you. Beautiful? Who, me? By Veryl I. Rogers. Beth Ann stood in front of the cracked mirror in her room. As she glanced down at the old skirt and sweater she wore, anger rose in her throat. It was bad enough to be pudgy and freckled, but to have to wear old hand-me-down rags added insult to injury. What the other kids say is true, she thought. I am ugly and dumpy. Maybe if I had better clothes, the kids would like me. Beth Ann, hurry up! Your breakfast is ready, her mom called from the kitchen. Beth Ann hurried down the stairs. Mornin', sweetie, Mom said as she set a bowl of cereal in front of her. It's going to be a lovely day. All things bright and beautiful, the Lord God made them all, floated softly through Beth Ann's mind. She watched her mom hurrying around the shabby but spotless kitchen. Mom was clever with her hands and performed miracles with next to nothing. Mom, do you ever wish we had lots of money? Beth Ann said as she dipped her spoon into the cereal bowl. Honey, I've never really given that much thought, Mom checked the stove. We've always been so fortunate that I'd feel ashamed even suggesting to the good Lord that he'd neglected our family. Beth Ann closed her eyes. How could she tell Mom that she needed a new dress because she'd been chosen to sing at the school concert? So far, she'd kept it a secret because she wasn't sure she would actually sing. The shock of what she'd overheard yesterday still haunted her. At first, the excitement had been more than she could stand when Mrs. Dyer, the music teacher, had announced that Beth Ann would sing the opening solo for the concert. It wasn't until afternoon that she had overheard the three girls talking about her. I am so sick and tired of hearing Beth Ann sing, sing, sing all the time, Kara sneered. Every time we have an assembly, she gets to sing. Yes, and to see her standing up on that stage in those dumpy dresses makes me sick. Jessica gave a shrill, ugly laugh. Plus, she's a big tub of lard, Amy snickered. I think I'll have my mom complain to the principal about this whole thing, exclaimed Kara. Tossing her blonde curls, she stomped down the hall. Her two friends hurried along behind her. Beth Ann had stood transfixed with horror. Fear, hurt, and shame engulfed her. She had never thought much about how she sounded, much less how she looked when she sang. Pastor Robbins had said people should use the talents God gave them, and she assumed singing was her talent. But how could she stand up there and sing after this? Now, as Beth Ann sat at the breakfast table, her mind flew in circles. How could she ever approach her mother about the dress? Hi, everybody, 10-year-old Mike shouted as he came hurtling into the kitchen. He reached for the milk and poured it over his cereal with a splash. Hey, Mom, isn't it great? Sis has been asked to sing the opening solo at the concert that's coming up. With a gasp of surprise, Beth Ann glanced at her mother. Leave it to Mike. Mom turned, face aglow, and exclaimed with pride, Beth Ann, why didn't you tell me? Oh, Mom, I'm sorry, but I haven't made up my mind whether I'll do it or not. Busily, she gathered the dishes and placed them in the sink. What do you mean, you haven't made up your mind? Why, dear, it's such an honor to be asked to sing. You'd actually turn it down? I'll think about it, okay? Beth Ann gave her mother a hug as she gathered up her books. I'll be home right after school and help with the ironing. All right, Mom said as she watched her daughter hurry down the sidewalk. What could be the matter? Many times during the day, Mom stopped her work to say a silent prayer for Beth Ann and the problem that seemed to be burdening her. All morning, a sick feeling lay in the pit of Beth Ann's stomach. Each time she glanced at Kara, the hurt grew bigger. The sound of the girls' voices giggling the day before echoed in her mind. Closing her eyes as she bent over her paper, she sent a short prayer to God. Please, God, help me not to care what they say. Help me forgive them. And most of all, I guess, help me just to be glad I'm me. The lunch bell rang and the room emptied with a scurry of papers, pencils, and books. Beth Ann slowly gathered her things, agonizing over whether to eat lunch in the cafeteria or outside, where she wouldn't have to listen to the whispers and snickers around her. Beth Ann, would you stay a moment? I'd like to talk with you before you leave, Miss Martin said with a smile. Miss Martin was her homeroom teacher and a favorite of all the students. Beth Ann looked at her questioningly. In the instant that their eyes met, she knew Miss Martin had heard what the girls had said. Beth Ann, I have something for you, and I hope you will accept it with as much joy as I find in giving it. I've wanted to do this for a long time, but didn't know how to go about it. When I heard that you had been chosen to sing for the concert, I decided that now was the appropriate time. She handed Beth Ann a large, brightly wrapped box. Hands trembling, Beth Ann opened the box, and there, lying in the soft tissue paper, was one of the most beautiful dresses she'd ever seen. The soft pink of the gossamer folds shimmered in the sunlight. Glancing up with stunned surprise, she was about to speak when Miss Martin raised her hand and shushed her, saying, "Just be happy, Beth Ann, and never take away from others the joy of giving." "It's so beautiful, I don't know what to say," Beth Ann sighed. "But, well, I may not sing after all." Slowly, tears filled her eyes, and she wiped them away with her sleeve. "What do you mean?" Miss Martin asked. "Well, I am not sure whether I want to." Beth Ann looked out the window. "Beth Ann, I think I know what the problem is, but running away from problems will never solve them. And believe me, they have to be solved somehow." Her hands neatly stacked the papers on her desk, giving Beth Ann time to think. "You have a lovely voice. It's God's gift to you. Never, never allow others to govern the good you can do by the things they say and do. But most of all, remember that you are God's creation. How could you ever be anything but beautiful?" The older woman placed the box in Beth Ann's arms and led her to the door. "I'm looking forward to hearing you sing, and when I see you standing there in that beautiful dress, I'll be happy for you. But remember, the dress isn't the important thing. It's the person inside that counts." Smiling, Miss Martin gently closed the door behind her. Beth Ann stood there for a moment, clutching the box with shaking hands. The sad, cold feeling in the pit of her stomach was gone. In its place was the calm assurance that she really was okay. Suddenly, it dawned on her that she hadn't even said thank you. Quickly, she turned to open the door. Through its glass window, she saw Miss Martin's head bowed over clasped hands, and somehow she knew the teacher's prayer was especially for her. And the reminder that God had made her, and she was beautiful in His eyes, had changed her life. Quietly, she tiptoed down the hall, the words, "All things bright and beautiful," singing in her heart.
The story you have heard today is from God's Greatest Stories, written by various authors and compiled by Randy Fischel, and used with permission from the Pacific Press Publishing Association. If you're interested in any other books published by the Seventh-day Adventist Church, please visit AdventistBookCenter.com or call 1-800-765-6955.
This podcast is a production of the Carolina Conference of the Seventh-day Adventist Church.